Good morning, everyone. Today is December 8th, 1941. Breaking news hits and shakes the United States in the past 24 hours. The Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service made a surprise military strike against the United States Naval Base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii on the morning of December 7th, just before 8 a.m.
The Japanese airplanes came in two waves approximately 45 minutes apart. The attack in total took about 110 minutes.
The attack was sudden, unpredictable, and deliberate. As you know, the United States and the Empire of Japan have been edging towards war for a while now. An hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced the bombing, the Japanese ambassador delivered a formal reply to a message from the Secretary of State, but it contained no hints or threats towards war or armed attack.
It was noted that the distance of Hawaii from Japan made it clear that the attack was intentional and planned weeks or even days prior. Sadly, the attack had affected our military and Navy immensely. Many ships were torpedoed on the elevated seas and many innocent lives lost.
It really is devastating to us. There was over 2,300 people killed and nearly 1,000 people wounded. In addition, 20 American naval vessels were damaged, including 8 battleships and over 300 airplanes. On top of that, with congressional approval, we are now going into war.
Yes, and to think it's all over wanting more privilege and power in the Pacific. So many lives taken and hurting families.
President Franklin D. Roosevelt has delivered a speech just a few hours ago today. Our reporters and analyzers, K&M, were listening when the speech was delivered. To have a more in-depth understanding of it, they're here live to explain what really was going on in his presentation. Let's get to it.
Hi everyone, I'm M. Arrow.
And I'm Kay Nelson.
Well, to make things a little more clear, this speech was written to address and inform the tragedy that occurred in Pearl Harbor to the listeners, viewers, and inhabitants of the United States of America. It's our job to make you observers realize the complexity and literacy intertwined in it.
I'll start first. So to kick his speech off, he introduced us with a very strong and emotional appeal saying, "A date which will live in infamy." Throughout his speech, it just gets better and better, and all in all, the president did a fantastic job.
President Roosevelt uses parallelism quite often throughout his speech. The use of this makes it sound more fluent in a grammatical and structural form. For those who are unsure of what parallelism is, this is when a word or short phrase is placed throughout a speech or a writing piece to bring more emphasis and, like how Roosevelt did, make it flow smoothly. He says, "It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was deliberately planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements." He uses the word deliberately a few times just to add that extra attention.
Now, a literary device that people use all the time without even knowing it is epistrophe. You know when you're in a fight and you might say or hear, "It's all your fault. Everything you do is your fault. Don't put it on me. It's not my fault." That right there is epistrophe. All it is repeating the same word or phrase at the end of a sentence. And if you didn't already assume, our president uses this in his most recent speech. Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands. Last night, the Japanese attacked Wake Island, and this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island. He could have done this coincidentally or intentionally, but this is something I took away from it.
In that section of his speech, Roosevelt also made use of anaphora throughout his speech. When he used anaphora, it gave the speech a splash of guilt and use of pathos. If you're unaware of what anaphora is, it refers to or replaces a word used earlier in a sentence to avoid repetition. He says, "Last night, Japanese forces attacked Hong Kong. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Guam. Last night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands." He intentionally uses the word "last night" multiple times to give it emphasis.
Referring to what she just said, President Roosevelt ties in the use of emotion and guilt to pull at your heartstrings. That technique is called pathos. He says, onslaught against us, which, if you were not sure, onslaught often refers to a destructive or fierce attack. That language, along with others, really spiced up his speech. Also, making your emotions flow like a waterfall.
Moving on, he gives unhuman ideas or objects human-like actions and characteristics. This is something we like to call personification. This is simply just adding a little bit of spice and representing things in an abstract way. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The written facts could not literally speak for themselves or speak aloud. A human clearly has to read and have themselves speak upon them. I think this really gives a creative and a less serious tone.
Last, but most definitely not least, we spotted a crazy amount of descriptive words. This is pretty much self-explanatory. It describes events, things, or people to not only give a visual effect, but even an emotional effect. Specifically, Roosevelt states words like treachery, deliberate, grave danger, and inevitable. Clearly, with the mood of the United States, this creates a gloomy tone.
That's it from us analyzers. Thank you for your time.
Back to you in the office.
We took action to the streets to get the honest opinions on the speech and the tragic bombing from citizens here in the United States.
And boy, was it interesting. Let's check it out. Reporter Caleb Korn here, live in Las Vegas. I'm on the streets wandering around to interview people, and I've run into a very interesting man named Ryan. Ryan, can you tell the watchers at home what you thought about Roosevelt's speech?
Well, first of all, I'm absolutely shocked to hear this news. I had no idea. I thought we were allies with the Japanese. And it may be 1941, but I have a feeling the Japanese are going to regret this for a very, very long time.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're very welcome.
I'm reporter Emery Rowe in a cozy home in Michigan with an everyday mom of 3 kids, Kelly Cornelson. Tell me, Miss Cornelson, what did you think of the speech that President Roosevelt delivered?
I am deeply saddened. Can you believe this? A lot of innocent people died. Why? What are we going to do?
Now here we have a very lazy, large, and sassy 11-year-old house cat, Peachy. Is it okay if I call you Peach? Okay. All right, Peach, what did you think of Mr. Roosevelt's speech? Interesting. Nice.
That's all from us, America. Have a great day. That was just very captivating.
We're out of time for today, folks. Tune in tomorrow morning to hear the details on the dog who walked himself home and ate a pizza.
Straight out of the studio, I'm Emma Caro.
And I'm Kayla Cornelson, and that sums it all up.